Does anyone here know what a MakerSpace is already?
Space we make stuff, right?
You are correct. In the simplest definition. So this is like the textbook example. To sum it up, I'm sure some of you have probably heard of a MakerSpace, like at your local library where they have 3D printers. Possibly you have it at your college. You might also have like small laser cutters or CNCs. But yes, essentially the MakerSpace, I like to compare it to a gym because it has really big equipment that's really expensive. And I don't want to pay for it or have it take up space in my house, especially since I might get into it and go, oh, I don't really want to use this anymore. But now I'm 10 grand deep into it, and it's the size of a king-size bed, and I have to find someone else to take care of it. So they started off, the earliest one I could find was the Fab Lab at MIT. There was one called Tech Shop, which was like a commercial brand one. They went under. We actually bought some of their equipment, the local one, when they went out of business. So
and got a bunch of new members who we call Tech Shop refugees.
They really started off of MakerSpaces, which was guys or people meeting up to do programming. And then when 3D printers got cheap in 2009, people started adding those to their MakerSpaces. Then you start getting the homemade desktop CNCs and laser cutters. And next thing you know, you have MakerSpaces popping up everywhere. If you want more info, you can check out MakerSpaces.com. And if you want to find one near you, since some of you live in Dallas and have a really nice MakerSpace there, I'm forgetting the name of it, just Google MakerSpace near me and things will pop up. We always say support your local MakerSpace because that's how they get bigger and better. There's currently one on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. They only have 35 members, I think. And they are, equipment-wise, they have almost everything that we have in our space. It's just they don't have heavy-duty stuff because they only have 35 members. Whereas we have, I think we just hit the 800 mark, right?
Yep.
So yeah, we have 800 people using your equipment. You want the industrial stuff. Otherwise, you'll be constantly doing maintenance.
Yep. It also makes economic sense because we can spread the cost of 200-watt laser cutters across 800 members. We can spread the cost of 2 3-axis CNC machines across 800 members.
So we're here with Nova Labs. We're at MakerSpace out in Fairfax, Virginia. It's about 35 minutes from here. And ours is unique because ours is a nonprofit volunteer-run space. That's the reason why we're still in business and Tech Shop isn't, because the amount of work needed to maintain a place like this is huge. We actually have a 4-axis CNC, the Haas, and it's being updated by 5 or 6 people taking turns whenever they have time to work on it. If you had to pay these people to do it, I think the techs are like $100 an hour, and they have countless hours into it so far. So Nova Labs originally started out of a storage unit. Legend has it that some guy got divorced. He had a bunch of woodworking equipment and no place to put it, so he put it in a storage locker and then started charging people to come use it. Then eventually they got some more equipment and they got a second storage locker. Then they got their first place, which was 10,500 square foot building in Reston, Virginia. Later we added a 8,000 square foot innovation center. This was mostly for people that are doing businesses out of Nova Labs. So they had their own separate equipment. Now we have our own building in Fairfax, which is 38,000 square feet. We're using 23,000 square feet of it. So as you can see, it grew out of a 10 by 20 locker to a 38,000 square foot building over the course of 12 years. Mm-hmm. And again, a handful of people to over 800. So more info about us for the people that are somewhat local. The way our membership is set up is $75 a month. That gives you access 5 to 10 p.m. weekdays, noon to 5 p.m. Weekends. Again, we're a nonprofit ran place, so trying to find volunteers for the middle of the week to let people in and help them with equipment, it's not really possible. Key members get 24/7 access for $125 a month. I believe all three of us are key members, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really great being able to go into this place at like 3 o'clock in the morning when there's no one else there and use all the 3D printers. And then by the time someone shows up at like 9 a.m., they don't know. How would they know? And then our Innovation Center, again, for the people that we have Nova Labs running the business, they pay $175 a month. They get the same access, but they have their own separate tools. So, quick info about me. My name is Lamar, aka Super Mario. I started cosplaying in 2018. This is my first cosplay for Anime USA, where I spent 80 hours working on it. This is actually also the con where I met Steve for the first time. Although Steve did not tell me about Nova Labs. I came into Nova Labs like 6 months later, ran into him, we were talking about resin pouring, and he mentioned Smooth On, and I've only heard that brand name one time before. So as soon as he said that, I was like, wait a minute, I saw you at Anime USA. I found about Nova Labs because I came to MAGFest in 2019, and I went to a 3D printing panel, and I did not want to spend, at that time, I think they were like $700 for a 3D printer, because I did not know how to use one, and I did not want to buy one, have it confuse me and get so frustrated. But I figured for $75 a month, getting access to this facility, it was worth it. So I joined. A month later, I became a team member, and now I'm in charge of organizing all of our panels and tables at conventions. So if you look at the program guide, we'll have more stuff going on, like chainmail workshop, there's a flower crown workshop, leather working workshop, a lot of stuff. So here's an example of why I joined Nova Labs, the 3D printers. Because again, like I used the gym example, you can buy a set of dumbbells, right? But you can't buy the giant rack that they have at Planet Fitness. So that's why you go there. Nova Labs currently, this is actually an outdated photo because we've added more 3D printers. I believe we're up to 16 3D printers, if you include the ones that we have in our IC area for the people who are running the business. The way ours works is that we have the filament price built into the cost of your membership. So unless you're doing some type of exotic filaments or you need a special color, you can just come in and print all you want. With a slight caveat. If you're doing an Iron Man suit, then yes, we ask you to chip in and buy some of the filament. Which is why you see some different colors here, because those are the ones that he bought himself. We also have resin printers, which Marissa has an example of a resin printed no face mask. And I believe that was done in one piece, right?
Yes, yeah. So this was a singular resin print done on the Anycubics Max, I believe. And so at the time, we only had smaller resin printers. We've actually upgraded as well, so we do have a number of larger size for even bigger pieces than this. This I had maxed out, no pun intended, the size, the height availability on the printer at the time. But we continue to expand both our extrusion and our resin printers.
And again, instead of buying one resin printer, she has access to 6 of them, one of which is big enough to do something like this. And I can tell you from every makerspace I've visited, which is up to at least a dozen by now, everyone has a lot of 3D printers and resin printers there. They're extremely popular with the D&D group. Those people are constantly printing figures. The Warhammer 40K guys are constantly printing figurines. I've actually never seen them play 40K. Constantly printing and constantly painting the figurines, which I feel like that's the actual game, just acquiring the figurines.
Sometimes we exist.
So here's another example of, and also I've also seen this at every makerspace I've been to so far, is the laser cutters. You see ours has a warning label because it emits potentially dangerous levels of awesome. Our laser cutters, laser cutters in general can be used to cut anything that doesn't put off toxic fumes when it burns. So the thing I've used it for the most is cutting fabric. because instead of doing it the traditional way of printing out your pattern, taping it together, cutting it, tracing it to your fabric, trying to cut it with scissors, possibly crying, taking a break, starting a new cosplay because you messed up on the first one, I can just take a PDF and stick the fabric directly into our machine and cut it. And here's an example of something I use it for, Christmas gifts. I can go to IKEA, get this little small bamboo cutting board for $3 and customize it for a family friend, which is probably the most common use there because in December it gets extremely busy on the laser cutters. Everybody getting stuff to engrave to give out as gifts. You can also do like wine glasses, tumblers. You can get powder coated cups and etch away the powder coating to put images onto it. You can also build a cardboard boat. If you come to our booth tomorrow and ask for Sam, he can tell you all about that.
There's a cardboard, there's a cardboard boat regatta every year in Reston, Virginia, where our old location was.
So here's a few pictures of our collection of sewing machines and sergers. We've also got fabric on top. Unlike the other equipment, not every MakerSpace I've been to has had this. I would say probably 70% of them do. This is a great way to learn how to get into sewing without having to buy your own machine again. And also, if you're not doing a lot of sewing, it's more convenient to go to your local MakerSpace, use it there, and again, not having it take up space in your house. We also have vinyl cutters. Again, not every MakerSpace does, but I would still say about 70% do, just like the sewing machines. The vinyl cutters can be used to make stickers, decals. You can cut small pieces of fabric on there. You can cut EVA foam. You guys think of anything else that you've seen cut on there?
I've only ever cut vinyl on it.
Well, I have one at home, so I have cut EVA foam on it, and so I joined and started using the laser cutter because I could do much bigger pieces on there. So here's an example of something I have done on there. This is a relative of mine. He's a wrestler with the National Wrestling Alliance. He's currently their TV champion, and I actually designed his gear there. I did not make it because I did not trust making something like that for a guy built like that to get slammed around by a guy even bigger and not have it come apart on live TV. So they had their in-house people do it based off my designs, but since I designed the logo, I was able to use the vinyl cutter to make stickers for him to give out to his fans. The way that worked is you print it out on a piece of paper, it puts registration marks on it, the vinyl cutter can see the registration marks, and from that it knows where to cut around the logos. We have heat presses. Ours are a 6x6 and a 16x20. This can be used to apply heat transfer vinyl, plastic salt transfers, and you can do sublimation. We will have an example later on of what you can do with the heat transfer vinyl that makes it very useful for cosplay. Here's some examples of what I've done with it. So again, because I had his logo, I was making him some merchandise for him to sell at the shows. I knew someone who was doing investment videos for millennials, so I helped them make a logo, and they had a little hoodie to wear when they went to their conferences, and you get way more questions walking around like that than just walking around in a suit. And in the bottom photos, this is for Farpoint Con, I sublimated some tiles. The sublimation works, we have a sublimation printer, it uses sublimation dyes. When it gets heated above a certain temperature, it turns into a gas. That gas gets absorbed by polymers. So you can use it to sublimate polyester or anything that has a polyurethane coating. So for Farpoint Con, which is a Star Trek convention in Baltimore, I did their logo on the right, and then they had the actress that plays Vixen from one of the DC Comics TV shows. And I was able to get that autograph because she loved it so much.
Those pictures don't do it justice. The sublimation printer is beautiful. If you've ever gone to one of those shops or stands in the mall where you get a picture of your dog put on a coffee cup, it's that quality.
Yes, I'm not sure if he's here this year, but there's normally a vendor who sells sublimated sheets of metal that has his artwork on it. We also have embroidery machines. We have two that are built like this. They're basically slightly bigger sewing machines that can do embroidery. The other one is a 12 needle, which looks like if you've ever been to the lid store or anywhere where you can get custom embroidery done, it's that style. It's great for recreating things that you've seen on your character's clothing that would be hard to do any other way. I know one person who's not a member anymore, but she did Elsa's dress from Frozen, and she was able to recreate the whole pattern using the embroidery machine. So here's a patch someone made for their jacket. Does anyone know what series this is from?
Expanse.
Yes, it is. For those who didn't hear it, it's from The Expanse, one of the best TV shows ever. I'm really happy that Amazon Prime picked it up to finish it and gave it the right ending it needed. If you have not heard of it, I would suggest you go watch it, and you will not like Star Wars or anything other than any other series set in space. So here's an example of the embroidery and the sublimation. This was for the National Surstrips Product Innovation Retreat. Sounds like fun, right? Well, they had a space theme, so one of our members went there and he decided to make these patches. So you can see the piece there with the Galaxy logo and the Cons logo on top of that. That was done with the sublimation. So like Steve was saying, how the quality, these pictures don't really do it justice. That one does it a little bit more justice. The orange one was a combination of sublimation and embroidery. So he sublimated the orange, so that's actually white fabric, and he sublimated the orange onto it. And then he did the embroidery around the edge, and there's an example of a hat that was done on the embroidery machine. So we have a shop saver. I would say now most MakerSpaces have CNCs. They're probably not this big, because this can do a 4x5 area.
Not quite that big.
Not quite that big. Is it?
Does everybody know what a CNC is? Anybody not?
A couple of head shaking in the back, yeah.
Okay. It stands for Computer Numeric Control. So you feed a program into it. It's got 3 axes, X, Y, and Z, and it spins an end mill in the spindle there and will carve anything that you want it to. So we have CNC in the Crafter's Cove. I think they actually have the most computer numeric controlled machines between all of the embroidery machines and the cutters and such. The big metal mills, the 3 axis and 4 axis, they all run on CNC.
Also, the same code that was created for CNC is what they use for the 3D printers. The only difference is that the CNC is taking away material and the 3D printer is putting down material. It's really good for making bucks for vacuum forming. So, of course, we have a vacuum former. And I believe the person that donated this to Devil Labs built it, had it in his garage, barely used it, so he gave it to us. So we always send him photos of things that have been made there. The way it works, you see the tanks down below, there's a pump to create vacuum there, and the top part there is heat lamps. So you put in your thermoplastic, and it will get it hot. Once it's warm enough, you can bring it down over top of your item that's on the vacuum former, and you can release the valve. The vacuum pressure will make the plastic take the shape of whatever you have there.
Everybody knows Adam Savage from Mythbusters, right? Okay. So that machine was DIY from plans that are available on the internet. Adam Savage's vacuum former is the same design, but ours is bigger.
So here's an example of something that was made on there, which means for scale. On the left is the form that was CNC'd, and then on the right is what was vacuum formed with it. I believe this is from World of Warcraft. Do not ask me the name. I know the guy told me several times. It took me multiple attempts to learn how to pronounce it. And I have not seen him in a year, so I do not remember the name. But this whole thing is maybe 7 pounds. You can actually hold it with one hand. You just need to have really big hands to grab that hilt, which is why I'm holding it with 2. It's vacuum formed plastic with smooth on brand expanding foam to help give it some rigidity. And also automotive quality paint. So we brought it to MAGFest in 2020, let hundreds of people hold it and take photos, and he was able to take it home and clean it up like you would a car. And I believe it took him 250 hours from the start of his 3D modeling through the CNC, through the vacuum forming, through the painting to get this done. But majority of that was in the 3D modeling and the CNC, so he can make another one in like 40 hours. So now we have some cosplay examples, since all of us are cosplayers, even though only one of us is currently in a cosplay. You're just going to take our word for it in cosplay? So I wanted to cosplay this character because I was in the middle of watching Naruto, and I actually did not finish Naruto because I like finishing an anime however I started, and I started watching the dub version, and for some reason the episodes I was streaming just switched to subtitle, and it was throwing me off because like this is not the same voices I've been hearing for 200 plus episodes. I can't stand this. So don't spoil it for me. So I use the software called Clo 3D. That's CLO 3D. It's $50 a month for a subscription. Pro tip: get all your patterns ready. Do it for 1 month and then cancel your subscription until you're ready to do it again. So the unique thing about Clo 3D, it was designed for making clothing for video games. And then people realized, well, you can just use those same patterns to make real clothes. So on the right side, you can see us making the pattern, and on the left side, you can see us seeing how it looks on my model of my body, which because this is a cloak, all we needed was my height and my chest width. After we made the pattern, like I said, no more printing out your patterns and tracing it on to your fabric to cut it. We were able to stick the fabric in there and just cut it directly. Your mileage might vary because I'm only 5'7". Robert Rivers is 6'4". I don't think it's going to work so well for him. And we were really struggling about how we wanted to recreate the clouds. And I was in a time crunch. I was still learning how to use the CNC. So like any good cosplayer, I have a huge stash of fabric. And I was like, well, I have a red and white fabric. It's just a Louis Vuitton pattern. But why not? So because we have the heat press, I was able to use Heat and Bond, which is an adhesive that you can iron on. But it's a lot more convenient to use the heat press. Then we were able to stick it into the laser cutter, and I was able to just laser cut the cloud, peel off the other side, and then heat press the cloud onto the cloak. And then for the headband, I was working on a EVA foam headband because I've done that before. And one of our blacksmiths came by and said, make it out of metal. And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know how to do anything with metal. And then I remember I'm talking to a blacksmith who's even nerdier than I am. So he says, just give me the pattern. And I gave him the pattern. And he was able to use the fiber laser. And the fiber laser can etch metal, which is why the blacksmiths use it a lot, because they can make blades and put their custom logos on it. Also, this blacksmith, I believe, is going to be here at the, is it Man at Arms booth?
Oh.
Yeah. He was actually also on Forged and Fire. He did not make it past the first round, but that's okay.
3 hours. If a really difficult to make a blade in 3 hours.
Well, it was really difficult for them because they didn't make 2 Damascus blades that matched each other. Because this was in the later seasons when they realized, oh, everyone's been studying little techniques about how to do this. Let's throw him a curveball and have him make 2. And then he rushed it. And that's the reason why he didn't make it past the first round. So you can kind of make it out, but for my logo, if you're familiar with Naruto, they have their village logos on their headbands. I put the DC flag, but because I'm a villain, they all scratch out their villages. We put the scratch mark to the DC flag. So again, Louis Vuitton clouds, custom DC headband, all these things I would not be able to do if I didn't have access to this type of equipment. And if you find a MakerSpace near you that has similar equipment, you can do the same thing. And you saw my first cosplay that took 80 hours to do. I didn't really keep track on this one, but it was significantly less. And also way more fun because I had to play with tools like laser cutters.
So I've been a member at Nova Labs for 8 years, maybe going on 9. I actually got started because of that thermoformer. My daughter, when she turned 16, wanted to go to Otakon, so we went there. She got really into cosplay, and she drafted me to make a prop helmet with a purple faceplate. And for that, you need a thermoformer, and when you Google thermoformer and Northern Virginia, you find Nova Labs. So this is one of the characters I cosplay. It is from Matt Wagner's Mage series, 45 issues over 35 years. So it was a labor of love for him and the fans. This is Kevin Matchstick, and I just got obsessed with how could I make that bat. Go ahead. Well, the first thing I did was I turned a bat. Go ahead. There it is. Go
Good
ahead.
place to start, yep.
Yeah. Then, using Smooth-On products, I made a silicone rubber glove mold with a fiberglass, what's called a mother mold, a stiff shell around it to keep the silicone from flipping around. Then, go ahead.
I want to point out, even though it's not used in this photo, we have a perfectly level table for when you're doing your casting. Mm-hmm. How big is the size of that?
It's like 44 by 48.
Yeah, so you want to make sure it's level so you don't spend way more time cleaning it up afterwards. You could use something like that.
If you're doing like a live edge river pour, so you have 2 pieces of wood and you've got the epoxy resin in the middle, and your table isn't level, one end ends up way thicker than the other, and it takes forever to sand it out. So we built a perfectly level table. Okay, go ahead. Then the next thing I had to do was go to the wood shop and make a device called a rotocaster. So you take the mold and the mother mold, you mount it in this frame that's kind of like a gimbal, you dump the plastic in, turn it on, and it rotates in all 360 degrees on all axes, coating the inside of that mold with the resin. And then, of course, it was time to wrap a whole bunch of LEDs around a 3D printed core. Yeah, I had 7,000 lumen inside that thing. When I would come here, I would love bright shaming the Jedis with their silly little lightsabers. And I'd walk through the halls, and I would hear people behind me saying things like, "That's bright. Oh my God, that's bright. My eyes, my beautiful eyes."
How long did that take you?
Oh, yeah.
3 years, and it's not done yet.
How long was the battery pack last?
The battery pack, the one I started with, was 5,000 milliamp hours, so it would last the whole weekend. Now I'm using a smaller battery from an airsoft gun, and it's only like 3,500, but it still lasts all weekend. Yeah, so there it is. I took it to a cosplay contest once, and they had a professional photographer taking everybody's pictures. And she said, she had the 3 big lights. She said, "I think my lights are going to wash out your bat." And I said, "No, they won't."
Also, his t-shirt was recreated using the vinyl cutter.
I did. I used the vinyl cutter and the heat press, and I'll tell you, one very important thing to keep in mind when you're using the vinyl cutter, you have to pay attention to whether you're this way or that way, because I made one of them where the lightning bolt was backwards. And this is something I've been working on since before COVID. It is Proto-Man's helmet, Mega Man's older brother. Although I don't know how robots can have brothers. That doesn't make sense to me. But to do the sizing, I first modeled the whole helmet in a 3D modeling CAD program called Fusion 360. Then I imported the model into Blender and built that grid over it so that I could flatten it out, put it in Pepakura, and make 3 different versions in 3 different sizes to get the size right. Here's the Shop Saber. That's just pink foam from Home Depot. I had to cut the model into 5 different pieces because of the limit on the Z-axis travel, but I carved all 5 of them, painted it with a sealer and sanded it out and smoothed it out. Spray painted it with sandable automotive primer, one of my favorite things, by the way. If you're trying to get a really professional quality on your costume, you can use sandable automotive polish and then, sand it down to like 2000 grit, and it comes out beautifully. Then it's back to the smooth-on stuff to make the glove mold. And there it is.
Also, the visor piece was vacuum formed.
Was thermoformed, yep.
It's me. Excellent. So in case you couldn't tell, Nova Labs has a very passionate cosplay community as well for any of the other cosplayers in the room. And in fact, when I first joined about 2 years ago, I was kind of really inspired to sort of delve more into cosplay myself. I'd actually joined for 3D printing and came out working with a bunch of fabrics. And so Katara here was actually my first cosplay that I had put together myself from scratch. But this work with textiles kind of carried over into other things as well. So this was 2 photos from this past New Year's. Where I was, very inspired with lights and luminescence. I did not wrap a baseball bat in a bunch of LEDs, but I did acquire fiber optic fabric and electroluminescent wire, which I then fixed to this dress. So the picture on the left is with the lights on the dress turned off. And then the picture on the right is with all of the lights turned on. So, multifaceted and for use in different aspects. But it was a really great example of how to take the skills from the cosplay community and branch out as well. One thing that I wish I had done was then to go to the blacksmith community and ask them for help with any accessories. I just had to throw in some blacksmithing for you guys who came here for that.
Was there a question?
No question? Okay, so even though we mostly, Steve does a lot of woodworking, me and Marissa mostly cosplay, Nova Labs, most MakerSpaces have large groups of random interests. So if you look in the other room where they have the lockpicking village, they actually meet at Nova Labs once a month. We also have a large LAN party that meets up the first Friday of every month. We have obviously the cosplay meetup that we do twice a month. We've had chili cook-offs.
Chili cook-off is coming up on the 27th.
Baking competitions, board game night, and it's really easy to pick up random hobbies there. Since I've joined, I've gotten my FAA license to be a drone pilot. I'm currently looking into ham radio. Obviously, I started learning how to lockpick with those guys, and then I bought my own lockpick so I can do it at home. And I just learned stuff through osmosis there. I know so much random stuff about machine metal. I know about woodworking now. I know about blacksmithing, not as much as the people who are doing the panel right after this. And I actually have technically my first woodworking project I've ever done over here.
Yeah, so a lot of people arrive for a specific shop like wood or blacksmithing, and then they stay for all of the random classes. So some of us have done like jewelry classes, wood cutting or wood cutting board classes, making those, and then Lamar has a few examples of other items as well.
Yeah, so I did a Viking con back in November. And when they asked me to do it, I was like, sure. And I thought about it. I had nothing Viking related to show off. So I went around looking at stuff. I tried to make the outfit. It did not get done in time, mostly because of this. So like I said, this is my first woodworking project ever. When we took it to Viking Con, it was better than 80% of the shields there that people paid for. And it's better than 60% of the shields that people made. And this is just 2x4s. Which, because I have access to a full wood shop, I was able to resaw them in half to make them thinner, and also I didn't pay for wood. This is just scrap 2x4s people are going to throw away. I looked at the price of buying wood, and I saw that, and I said, I'm not making a shield now. Fortunately, one of the woodworkers, I bounced the ideas off, told me to do this. It also has a Japanese wood burning technique to give it this finish. I know that's not Viking related, but it looks cool, and it was very easy to do in an hour, so that's why I did it that way. The shield boss here was just a random rusty piece of sheet metal that we had in the shop that one of the blacksmiths was like, oh yeah, we can beat this into the shield boss. Yeah, they could, not me. The pace I was going, so one of the blacksmiths was helping me. She was going twice as fast as me. And when I say twice as fast, I mean she was actually swinging the hammer half as much as me and getting twice as much work done. The other blacksmith who actually has experience working with sheet metal was going half as fast as her and again getting twice as much work done. And it took him 5 hours to get this done. So needless to say, I bought him a nice big bottle of whiskey to pay him back.
We talked at the beginning of this, we talked a lot about the equipment that we have and all of the cool tools in that. The more important part of Nova Labs and every other makerspace I know of is the people. It's very social. Lamar told you about the board game nights and the LAN party nights and all of that. The chili. Excuse me. But there are also experts in all of the tools that we have who are eager to help you use the tool, use it right, solve your problems. It's just a very supportive community, and if you're new to all of this kind of stuff, it really helps flatten the learning curve.
Yeah. So like I said, that was my first woodworking project. That was done in October, because that comes beginning of November. For Christmas this year, instead of doing the laser cuts, random IKEA or Dollar General stuff I showed you earlier that you could get, I actually made 72 wooden coasters, and I did that all by myself because the basic skills I needed for that, I learned making the Viking shield, which I learned with help because we have what's called open office hours, where if you have no idea what you're doing, like me, I can tell someone, hey, I want to make this, I'm not sure how, just show me the basics of how to get this done. So the first couple of cuts for that shield was done by someone else showing me how to set up the machinery, and then I was able to finish it on my own. And is there any other questions about makerspaces in general?
Tell them about the machete.
Yeah, so AwesomeCon, has everyone here been to that? Nobody? Has anyone here been to AwesomeCon before? Yeah, so last year one of their guests was Danny Trejo. And I had a really dumb idea. Let's make a Damascus machete and get it signed by Machete. Unfortunately, this year they weren't able to bring in something metal like we have in previous years, even though we had this nice fancy box, which again, the woodworkers helped me with. This is also scrap 2x4s. We made it, and then one of them looked at it, and he said, that looks like crap. So he actually veneered it to make it look better. The plexiglass that we had Danny Trejo sign, I laser cut that to fit inside the box. in the back, there's actually a piece of EVA foam, my scrap EVA foam left over from that first cosplay I showed you guys. I laser cut that to match the shape of the machete, and I put some of my scrap fake carbon fiber fabric in there. And because of that, it sits flush with the EVA foam. There's 3 magnets in the back that keeps the machete from falling around. And then now I get to keep going to cons and saying machete signed by Machete over and over again, and it does not get old. So before we move on to the blacksmithing part, again, is there any questions about makerspaces in general? Does anyone have ideas, does anyone have questions about stuff they want to make and want a few suggestions?
I just had a question about the blacksmithing stuff specifically. It's like where do they source their metal and stuff like that?
Okay, so when they get up there, you can ask them that.
Sure.
Any other non-blacksmithing questions?
How heavy is the shield?
How heavy is that shield? About 12 pounds. I would not trust it in an actual Viking fight. Unless you have well, I'm pretty sure they brought multiple shields to their fights because one nice blow, your shield is gone. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you, Steve and Marissa. They're going to swap out, and we're going to have our blacksmiths come up here.